It's the beginning of May 1945. Berlin is being squeezed between the British and Americans from the west and the Russian army from the east, both sides fighting for every inch of land. And from the air too, the city is being pulverised. It is the end.
This is the BBC Home Service. The Russians are now attacking the innermost of the 3 defence rings built to protect Berlin. There's no pause in the battle day or night, and it's being waged not only by the artillery, tanks and infantry amid the ruins at ground level, but also in the smoky, dusty sky overhead.
In the heart of the city, every street was fought for ferociously. If the urban centre was bombed to rubble, the suburbs were spared the very worst. Almost.
Just a little bomb. So that was practically it was all intact, the whole area.
I've got to stop you there. Only a little bomb fell in your room.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? What happened?
We were in the air raid shelter and heard a lot of noise, and so we went upstairs, and on the 3rd floor, where there was my room, we saw my aunt. She is a very resolute person. She saw the flames and she extinguished them. That was it. It was not a big bomb. When the raids took place, they all flew over to hit Berlin proper. So that area was still a beautiful, idyllic sight.
My witness today was 19 at the time. I won't give her name for reasons that will become clear. In 1945, she lived in a mansion with her aunt after her family had fled to Bavaria. As the Russians neared, so bringing an end to the war, she and her aunt waited with a confusion of emotion, relief partly, but also fear.
The Red Army is the relief was only that the war had ended, that this Nazi, that the horrible time where we had suffered for I don't know how many, not 12 years, I was too young for that this had ended.
Just the end.
It was the end, and you just felt like as if a bomb, one of those air bombs, had just planted you somewhere else.
My witness had been living in the grand family home on a lake in a quiet neighbourhood. She'd worked in an armaments factory in Berlin as German men had been ordered to the front. Then the Russians arrived. She had dreaded Soviet soldiers. She says she was naive, sexually innocent, and the Red Army had a fearsome, scorched earth reputation. Yet to this young woman, many of the ordinary soldiers seemed almost childlike.
Really, they had never seen a flush toilet. They put their head into it and flushed and were happy. We had a Daimler car that was blocked up in the garage because nobody were allowed to take them anymore, and they couldn't be confiscated by the Nazis. They couldn't do anything with an elegant car. So that was the first thing. The Russians were like children. They took them out, and there were no tires on it, and they played with it and tried to start the engine.
But these were soldiers who'd fought the most bitter war from the gates of their own homes right across the blood-stained lands of Eastern Europe. Berlin was being looted. Nothing was safe, not people, not property. Oddly, though, these 2 young women, our witness and her aunt, hit upon a way of protecting valuable things.
There are so many funny stories, bad stories, of course, but funny also, because we found out that in my grandmother's room, the furniture was covered with drapes or with bed sheets. And a little cross that was on the wall had fallen onto the sheet. This was a room that scared the Russians. They were afraid. They saw a cross. They were afraid. It was a funny room, only covered with bed sheets, and that really made them afraid. So we put things underneath the sheets, and we put also jewelry in the lampshades on the ceiling, so these little things survived.
So the Russians would come into this, Russian soldiers, the Red Army soldiers would come into this room and see the sheets and a cross.
Yeah, a little wooden cross. It was eerie.
Did you form relationships with any of the Russians? I mean, did you warm to any of them?
God forbid, no. Fortunately, they always went through now. How could we?
Tell me about the man who raped you.
Oh, come on. It's so what, it was a very young soldier. He tried to kiss me, and I said, what was that? And then the one thing happened, I tried to flee onto the big terrace through the big doors, and then he came, Frau Komm. The Frau Komm was always a metaphor for, come on, I want to rape you.
Pointing a gun at you.
Yeah. He was very young, disappeared. I developed a capacity to stand beneath me, next to me, watch me. It's not I that happened. That's a story that I always wanted to tell somebody who is a psychologist or what have you.
Well, I was going to say, so the psychology of defence in your own mind
must have been.
is to take yourself outside your own body.
Exactly.
This is something she's keen to play down. She says that what happened to her wasn't as bad as what happened to other Berliners. She thinks she was lucky.
They plundered. They plundered also in other houses, not only in ours. There were orgies in the house next to us. Everything that had been a horror story seems to be true. I was lucky that I was not mutilated. I was lucky that they didn't stomp out cigarettes. I'm lucky that I didn't get sick. I'm just plain lucky because we didn't know ourselves what happened to others. I was raped, okay. I was the first victim of the street. I was lucky because I didn't have any traumatic experience. I didn't have any traumas. We had good friends, went to a doctor, and he was very good with us, and we were lucky. And later on, all these horrid stories, what the Russians did with women, etc., well, we were spared that.
Rape was common, either as out-and-out violence or forced on women who needed food or who feared gangs of soldiers. She and her aunt set about the task of simply staying alive.
So you had to see, where can I get something to eat? You had to see where we get water. And always it was so good that Auntie and I were only together, that there wasn't anybody whom we had to care for.
So you were scavenging after the Russians arrived, trying to find water here, trying to find food there.
Not scavenging. Well, there was a source for water down the street, so we went all there every day, the other neighbors with a pail to get water. You had your rations, you had bread, you had very little food. That was okay.
She did survive the war and got to the western sector that became West Berlin. She worked for many years in the United States before returning to the city. Throughout this time, until the fall of the Berlin Wall, her house remained in the eastern section, in the old East Germany. Now she lives in an old people's home not so far away. There she sits in her armchair, talking wistfully of the grand house in which she grew up. That's what she really wants to talk about, the elegance of the pre-war life there, the memories of childhood, not the scars of history.